Hey there, quick note before we dive in. What you're watching right now is a lesson from one of my courses that I've decided to release completely for free here on YouTube so you don't have to pay a dime. So instead of asking you to buy my course, if you want to show your appreciation, here's a couple of things that you can do. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel. These small actions tell YouTube to share my content with more people, which is a huge help. Also, feel free to check out my recommended equipment links in the description below. If you do purchase equipment from these links, I do get a small commission at no extra cost to you whatsoever. Or if you want to, you can leave me a super thanks or even just hit play on one of my playlists. I know it sounds silly, but if you just hit play on one of my playlists and let it play in the background, even if you're not paying attention, it tells YouTube, hey, people are watching these videos. I'm going to push it out to more people. So even if you just want to do that, I would love it. I would appreciate it so much. And then lastly, if you're looking for more personalized help, I do offer private coaching that you can find in the description of this video. Either way, I really appreciate you, whether you choose to do one of these things or not. Just by simply watching this video, it means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Now, let's get to the lesson. All right, in this video, I'd like to cover some areas of the EQ to look out for and what they do to the voice, whether you're cutting or boosting them. But before we dive into all of that, we first need to better understand the frequency ranges of the EQ. So let's cover that first. Knowing these ranges visually can definitely help you, but if you were to train your ears and get good enough to identify them without even seeing them, just by hearing the audio, that's where you can really work efficiently. Quick disclaimer. Most of what I'm covering in this section is just averages. The reason for this is that every voice, space, and microphone is different. So the bass in my voice might fall around 120 hertz, where the bass from someone else's voice might be found more around 150 hertz. There's no way to just outright say the bass in a human voice lives at X because everyone's voice will vary. So these are just average ranges to get you close. Your ears will take you the rest of the way. All right. Let's break this down. Lows, 20 hertz to 120 hertz. Low mids, 120 hertz to 500 hertz. Mids, 500 hertz to 2000 kilohertz. High mids, 2000 kilohertz to 8000 kilohertz. Highs, 8000 kilohertz to 20,000 kilohertz. All right, so now that we've defined the ranges, let's get into how they actually affect the voice. 80 hertz and below, rumble. Low frequency noise. This area is known as low rumble and can tend to build up in your audio. You'll use a high pass filter to deal with this low rumble. Using a high pass filter to deal with rumble is the first thing pretty much any engineer in the world is going to do to the voice that they're working with. Every voiceover or just recorded voice that you hear on TV, radio, streaming, or wherever it is that you're consuming content has a high pass filter thrown onto it. They'll either cut up to 60 hertz, 80 hertz, and even up to 100 hertz and anything in between. It all just depends on the voice that they're working with. I always cut up to about 70 to 80 hertz out of my audio for my voiceovers and YouTube videos. It's something that most people can't even hear the effects of, but trust me when I say it will clean up your audio and help reduce the volume of your noise floor. Always good practice to do. Moving on. 120 hertz, bottom end for most males. Boosting this frequency can make the very bottom end of a lot of male voices sound bigger and fuller. You can hear this technique used a lot in movie trailer voiceovers, car commercials, and things like that, especially back in the day when the voice of God was a big thing, you know? You just really got to be careful here because while boosting this frequency can help the voice sound bigger and fuller, in some cases you might need to cut this frequency if there's too much to allow the audio to sound more clear. On top of that, you may just need to totally leave this alone altogether. This is why I talk so much about ear training. Knowing when and when not to do something is crucial. 200 hertz, bottom end for most females. All right, now, all of that also applies here, around 200 hertz for the typical female voice. While boosting here can warm up the voice, make it bigger or fuller sounding, as I said, the same warnings here also apply. Ear training is key. 500 hertz, boxiness. All right, 500 hertz. Some people will say, I sound like I'm in a tube, or I sound hollow, or I sound like I'm in a cardboard box. This sound is mainly due to the fact that the individual hasn't professionally treated their space. Acoustically treating your space is by far the most important part to having professional sounding audio. Any adjustments made here with EQ will only be a band-aid. The problem will still be there, just less noticeable if adjusted with EQ. You can actually make a small cut here with your EQ to get rid of some of that boxiness, but as I said previously, these are just averages. You have to have a trained ear to find exactly where your boxiness lives and cut it out. However, simply acoustically treating your space will alleviate this issue, so that's what I recommend doing instead. 2000 kilohertz to 4000 kilohertz sizzle. This range of frequencies can help a voice jump out at the listener, but this range can also cause sounds such as ch sounds or t's or s's and others to really sound harsh to the ears. You'd want to be really careful with this one. You may even need to make a slight cut here so that your audio is easier to listen to and less harsh. For example, when it comes to my YouTube videos, I usually use dynamic EQ here, set to about 3K to cut down on the harshness of my audio. 4000 kilohertz to 10,000 kilohertz sibilance. The harsh whistle of an S can be found between 4K and 10K, and yes, that is quite a range, I know. I used to edit audio for a married couple, and the husband had sibilance around 4K while the wife had sibilance around 10K, and believe it or not, she actually had sibilance in like 3 other places as well. Very, very difficult to deal with, but I say that to say sibilance has quite the range of existence, as you can see. That's all I'll say here, so make sure to watch the video I did all about sibilance to find out more, and also how to reduce it. 12K and above, top end airiness. Boosting this frequency is yet another way to help the voice jump out at the listener, but you need to be really careful here because boosting this frequency too much can cause the audio to sound really harsh and fatiguing to the ears. You could also use a low-pass filter here to cut down on some of the high end and harshness, but I usually just leave this alone and don't do anything here. All right, now that we've broken down the different frequencies and how they affect the voice, I want to make something very clear. I feel that knowing this information is very helpful and empowering for a voice actor. It helps you understand EQ and your instrument on a whole new level. That being said, 99.9% of the time I never apply these techniques to my audio other than slightly cutting out sibilance and using a high-pass filter to cut out the low-end rumble in my audio. These are techniques that an audio engineer will use on your audio once you send the final file over to them. Let them do this to your audio. The last thing you want is to send off already processed audio for them to just reject and say they can't work with it, and either you've now got to resend them the raw audio, or worst case scenario, they may end up even dropping you from the project altogether. One of the easiest ways around this is to send 2 files to them. One file that's totally raw and untouched, and then another file that you've processed. That way you don't completely tie their hands on the other end, and it keeps you safe.